Hello everybody, welcome into another game review. Today I am going to be reviewing The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, and PC. In particular, for this review, I'm going to be reviewing the Nintendo Switch version. I recently finished my second playthrough of the game, which was the Nintendo Switch version. I originally played The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero many years ago when a fan translation of the game was released for the PSP original version of the game, and I played through it on the PSP original version, really enjoyed the game, and then recently the game got a re-release and got localized officially for the first time ever. And this is so far my favorite released JRPG of 2022. I really enjoyed this game. The reason for me that this is my favorite JRPG of 2022 is not just that the game is so incredibly good to me, but this game also completely changed my perspective on certain types of games. In this review, I'm going to be talking about what the game plays like, what the good parts of it are, what the bad parts of it are, and who this type of game will be for. So let's talk about what The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero is. So The Legend of Heroes Trails series is a long-running RPG series, and basically Trails from Zero is the fourth Trails game. So it takes place after Trails in the Sky the third, so all of the Trails games take place in the same world as Zemuria. The Trails in the Sky trilogy took place in the country of Liberl. Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, which is the sequel to this game, all take place in the city of Crossbow, and they start the Crossbow story arc. So because Trails from Zero takes place in a different city, the game also has a different cast of main characters from Trails in the Sky. So you can play this game without playing Trails in the Sky or the later Trails to Cold Steel games. If you do play the Trails in the Sky games before this, it does add to the story of Trails from Zero because there are returning characters from the Trails in the Sky games who get their stories further developed in this game. So Trails from Zero is a turn-based RPG game. The game has you play in the role of the main character Lloyd Bannings, who is a police detective that joins the Crossbow Police Department. Lloyd joins the police department to follow in the footsteps of his older brother, Guy Bannings. Lloyd's older brother, Guy Bannings, was a police detective who was very successful and highly accomplished. He was very well respected, but something very bad happened to him. Guy was mysteriously murdered and shot to death a few years prior to the start of Trails from Zero, and his case has been a cold case. The killer has not been discovered. Lloyd joins the police department to follow in his brother's footsteps and to hopefully figure out the mystery behind his brother's murder. Lloyd ends up joining a part of the police department called the Special Support Section. The Special Support Section of Crossbow consists of four main members of the group. There's the main character Lloyd, and then there's Tio, a young hacker who is a genius at hacking and is very knowledgeable about technology. And then there is Randy, who is a laid-back, carefree person who is a shameless flirt and serves as the older brother type person in the group. And then last is Ellie, who is the daughter of the mayor of Crossbow, and whose family has political ties to many important figures in the Crossbow City political system. The team worked together to help out the townspeople of Crossbow and to also help the police department with different cases. As you go along throughout the game, you'll be solving different cases, and being that your characters are detectives, during cases you'll have to think back on story moments that happened and certain things that happened as you were trying to solve the case, and you'll have decisions that you have to make in the cases, and choosing the right decisions based off of remembering what happened leads to you, the player, getting rewarded with what is called detective points. As you get more detective points, your detective rank will go up, and every time it does, you get different rewards. And usually the rewards are very good, very rare items. So it's really important that during the cases, you remember what happened and you make the right decisions. And the game helps you feel like more of a detective because of how you have to remember the details in the cases and what happened during the cases to solve them. And so you'll be going to different locations, solving cases, helping people. Now let's talk a little bit about the gameplay of Trails from Zero. So like I mentioned, the game is a turn-based RPG, and the game pretty much has you going around exploring areas, fighting monsters, And one change you'll notice from Trails in the Sky is that outside of battles, you can hit enemies with weapons to stun the enemy and then get into a battle with them. And if you stun the enemy and then run into them to start the battle, you'll get an advantage at the beginning of the fight. Running into an enemy while they're stunned will give you an advantage and allow you to ambush the enemy. Ambushing the enemy in Trails from Zero gives you a massive advantage as a player because it allows you to get critical hits very easily, and it also greatly increases the chances that you'll get a team attack. A team attack in Trails from Zero is like an all-out attack from Persona 3, 4, or 5. It's where all of your characters team up and they do one big attack on almost all the enemies in the battle, and they do tons of damage to the enemies. So now, once you're in a battle, we're going to start talking about the combat of Trails from Zero. On the left side of the screen, you see a turn order, and it shows when all characters in battle are going. So you can see when the enemies are going to get their turns and when your characters are going to get their turns. And during combat, just like in Trails in the Sky, there's different turn effects that you get on certain turns. So you might get exclamation point next to a character or enemy. Whoever gets the exclamation point next to their turn, they get a critical hit. Then there's other turn effects, like there's one that gives you 2 turns in a row. There's another one that makes you recover HP or recover other certain types of things. And because of that, the turn effects really change how you play the battles. Not only do the turn effects change how you play the battles, but in the game, you also can move your characters around during fights. So when you use abilities in Trails from Zero, basically they affect a certain part of the battlefield. They have a certain distance and range that they cover. And because of this, if you move your characters closer together, they might be able to get healed all by the same ability. But if you space them apart, they might not all get healed by the same ability because the ability might not cover enough distance to heal everyone. So there's a strategic aspect to the battle system where you got to decide where you're going to move your characters in battle, where you're going to position them. The movement adds more strategy to the battles. The positioning of enemies and characters adds a lot more strategy. And then you also have the turn effects and the turn order and being able to do things like delay enemy turns, which can completely change how battles are played in the game. Another great feature of the Trails games is the craft point system. So in battle, you get craft points, which are gained from attacking enemies or being attacked. And there are certain abilities that can only be used with craft points, which are unique to every character, and every character gets their own set of craft abilities. And then if you get craft points to 100, you can do what is called an S-craft, which is like a big special attack a character can do that has a really crazy animation and does a ton of damage. Think of like limit breaks from Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy VIII. And so in the Trails games, during battles, you got to build up your craft points, and then you got to be very strategic with using your craft point abilities. Then in the game for magic spells, there's what's called EP, which is basically the magic point system of Trails. Anytime you cast spells, it uses EP, which can be recovered by resting at an inn or by using items that recover EP. Now, magic is also unique in the Trails games because magic is not instantly cast when you use it. Instead, there's a casting time for spells, and while characters are casting spells, it can be attacked, and so that's another really great feature of the battle system in Trails from Zero. The magic system also makes you really have to strategize with your spell casting to make sure you cast spells at the right times and that your spells don't get interrupted by enemy attacks. Overall, I think the battle system in Trails from Zero is definitely above average. It has a lot of really cool features, but there are some flaws with the battle system of Trails from Zero I do want to talk about. So the first flaw I'll say about Trails from Zero, the battle system, is that the new ambush system of the game is a little bit too good. So the team attacks that you get almost all the time from ambushing enemies are a little bit too powerful. On the normal difficulty of the game, because the game does have multiple difficulty modes you can choose from, I found that most of the time when I did team attacks, enemies would just instantly die and I would instantly win the normal battle. In some cases, the enemies would survive, but they would survive with very low health. So I do think that gameplay mechanic is a little bit too overpowered, and I think it makes most of the battles too easy on the normal difficulty. So that is one problem with the game. Another problem I feel with the battle system is although the battle system is pretty good, I think that compared to Trails in the Sky, the battle system is too similar to Trails in the Sky. Really, when you look at the battle system in Trails from Zero, the only new unique thing they really added to the fights was that you can do dual S-craft abilities where two characters combine their S-craft into one big attack where they team up. And outside that, the battle system is the exact same as it was in Trails in the Sky. I would have liked to have seen the game developers add more innovation to the battle system of Trails from Zero. Overall, though, I find the battling very fun in Trails from Zero, and I had a ton of fun with the battles in the game. Now, outside of battling, you got the main town of Crossbell, which has several different parts to the town, and over there in Crossbell, you'll do all of your shopping, buying new weapons and armor for your characters, new quirks to set up magic, and then also going to the item store to buy items as well. You can also get weapons and armor from treasure chests and dungeons as well. Now, in terms of magic in Trails from Zero, in order to get new magic spells, you have to go to a quirk shop, and by equipping those quirks onto a character's enigma, you can learn new spells with them based on the magic values that the quirks gives. And one thing I also really want to talk about in Trails from Zero is the new additions to this version of the game. So in the Switch, PS4, and PC official released version of the game, they have added a fast forward mode to the game that wasn't in the original PSP version. And basically in the fast forward mode, you can set it to how fast you want. You can set it to ×2, ×3, ×4, ×5 speed. And you can go through battles really quick. You can walk around areas super fast, and it just really speeds up the game, and it's a wonderful, amazing quality of life feature that more RPG games should have. And another great feature of the Switch and the PC version is the greatly improved graphics of the game, and also a message log that you can see where you can look back at the text from certain cutscenes or NPCs that you talk to and see the messages from a cutscene in the game, so you can maybe figure out where to go or see what a character said in a cutscene. Unfortunately for people who buy the game on the PS4 players kind of get screwed, and they don't get the improved graphics and the message feature that the Switch and PC versions have. Unfortunately, it wasn't added to the PS4 version, and so because of this Trails from Zero, the PC and Switch versions are actually superior in terms of graphics and gameplay. The Switch version of Trails from Zero has better graphics than the PS4 release of the game. But overall, the gameplay of Trails from Zero is very good. Now let's talk about the story of Trails from Zero. So basically the story in this game, guys, the story is absolutely incredible in this game. This is a very story-heavy RPG, and so I know some people aren't really into story-heavy games, and that's going to be a major thing that we need to talk about with Trails from Zero. Now, the thing is with Trails from Zero, the game is very story-heavy, like I mentioned. This is not a game where like you finish an area of the game and then there's a 5-minute cutscene and then it's back to the gameplay. This is the type of game where like you'll beat a boss and you'll finish an area and then it's going to be like 25 to 30 minutes of cutscenes with zero gameplay in between that 25 to 30 minutes. So that is something you really have to consider with Trails from Zero. If you're somebody who's not into super story heavy games, this might not be the game for you. For me though, Trails from Zero, what it made me realize and how it changed how I view games, as much of a fan as I am of really good stories, and especially in RPG games, I hate when there's really long cutscenes. But for me, with Trails from Zero and the Trails series, it's made me change my perspective, and now I no longer mind super long story scenes, because if the story is good enough, then it's totally okay with me. And this game's story was so incredibly good that I enjoyed it so much that I didn't mind there was long parts of the game with only cutscenes and no gameplay. I completely was okay with it in this game because the story and characters and plot twists in this game are so good. This game has some of the best characters you will see in a game. I was very heavily invested in the characters of the story. You learn a lot about the main characters of the game. You learn a lot about the side characters of the game. The characters of the game have a lot of character development to them, and they are very interesting, very likable characters, and some of the best characters in a game out there. One of the amazing things of the Trails series too is how they bring back characters from previous games into newer games of the series. So, for example, in Trails from Zero, there is a fisherman named Lloyd, not Lloyd the main character of the game, but a different character named Lloyd. He's an NPC from Trails in the Sky 1, and he returns here in Trails from Zero and you can talk to him. And because of that, the game makes a reference back to Trails in the Sky and continues the story of Lloyd the fisherman. Not only does he return as an NPC, but there's main characters from Trails in the Sky who return in Trails from Zero. And so those characters returning from Trails in the Sky have their character stories further developed and further expanded upon. And you learn more about those characters and their story, and the game just really does a great job of continuing the returning character stories and adding more to their characters. Now, if I had to say some bad stuff about the story, I would say that the antagonists were kind of disappointing. The main antagonists of most of the game are the Mafia, and they're basically the enemy group of the game. They're the ones behind most of the bad stuff going on in Crossbell. And they're kind of disappointing. They're kind of generic evil bad guys. But overall, I thought the story in Trails from Zero was absolutely incredible for the most part. And in general, the story is just very well written in this game. Now, aside from the story, the last thing I really want to talk about in the game is the music. And the music in Trails from Zero, it is so good. This game has so many good battle themes, so many good boss themes. The area themes are really well done. I've listened to the soundtrack a lot of times over the years. It has really exciting, awesome battle and boss music. It has really good music in general. Overall though, Trails from Zero is an excellent game. It's not a flawless game and it's not a game for everybody, but it's a game I really enjoyed. The battles were a ton of fun in the game. And the game overall is a very story-heavy RPG, which means it won't be for everybody. There's quite a bit of story in the game, so that is something you really need to think about before you buy Trails from Zero. If you're really somebody who might not be into story-heavy RPGs, that could be a reason this game might not be for you. But overall, I had a fantastic time playing through this game. It is currently my favorite JRPG, released in 2022. My recommendation, absolutely buy this game at full price. It is such a good game. As always though, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who watched the video. I really greatly appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and also follow me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Shockstorm. As always, thank you all so much for watching the video and I will catch you all in the next video. Thank you all so much. Everyone have a great day.